Let's return to one of our top stories, which is the murder of Gauteng Health whistleblower Babita Deokaran. And that matter has today been postponed now to next month. Deokaran was gunned down outside her Johannesburg home almost 2 years ago after flagging dodgy contracts worth 850 million rands. For more on this, we're joined now by the Whistleblower House Executive Director, Cynthia Stimpel, as well as Outa CEO Wayne Duvenage. Good to have you both, and thank you very much for coming on tonight. Wayne, raising some concerns around the delays. Let's talk about that a little bit, and what do you think of this latest postponement? Okay, Wayne, sorry, you're muted there. If you can unmute for us, thanks.
Sorry about that. Hi. It is sad that we sit here 2 years later and nothing has really happened. Sure, we have the 6 suspects behind bars and they're not out on bail. But by now, in any good, efficient criminal justice system, you would get behind exactly what happened. Who's the kingpin here? Because while these might have been the people who pulled the trigger, and giving rise to the assassination of Babita Deokaran, we believe that the kingpins, the people who ordered this, are still at large, still walking around. And this is just a sad day for the family to have this postponed again. I know there's judicial processes that have to be followed, and the victims or the suspects are given the rights that they have. That's fine, and their lawyers are not well enough to be in court. But this delay upon delay upon delay does nothing for justice. Justice delayed, as they commonly say, is justice denied. And it is a very sad day for the family who are still trying to get closure here.
Yeah. And Cynthia, the suspects, 6, might be behind bars, but as Wayne says, the kingpins are still out there. We know, for example, from the Premier of Gauteng, Lusufi, and the SIU report that was released in December, I think, last year, that there's a clear link between the work that Babita Deokaran was working on and what the SIU is discovering. And we know the companies and I suppose the families that have benefited from huge sums of money. What's the challenge in linking all this to coming up with the kingpins?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me on. I think the challenge, firstly, would be difficult in that at this point in time, we only have the 6 suspects who were obviously advised and tasked and paid to do the bad deed of assassinating Babita Deokaran. The masterminds, the kingpins, the ones who orchestrated the entire killing, obviously can only lead to the information we find in the trial. So for me, it's really sad and devastating that this trial keeps being postponed. And the question I really have is why? Why can't we, when they were caught within less than a month, and there was ample time to do proper investigations, why was this not done? So if one just looks at Babita Deokaran, she had identified and isolated information in her role as an accountant. So she was doing her job, found that there were payments made under a certain threshold of 500,000 and being paid to certain organizations that A, did not fit the bill of supplying the protected equipment needed for the hospitals, to be purchasing things like, they said, Boerewolf's, skinny jeans, various couches, things that are non-related to what it was supposed to be via the actual invoices. So shows that it was a mechanism to extract funding from the Gauteng Department of Health, and this is approved obviously by senior people. And Babita reported this to her boss, who was the CEO at the time, and her name was Lerato Maggio. But what happened to Lerato Majo. At the moment, she's suspended and nothing's happening to her. A year suspension and nothing happening to her case. That's a quick win. Why have they not sorted that out and found out why the CEO didn't do the investigations that were supposed to have been done, a forensic investigation? Instead, she did a compliance audit. The CEO at the time was also Ashley Matunzi. What happened to him? He's also been suspended and nothing to date. He's getting paid. Both of them are getting paid. And this poor family of the her daughter, who's now in a matric year, has to live with this, suffering the loss of a mother. And I feel that our system in seeking social justice, our judicial system, our employment system right now already should have had both the CEO and the CFO dismissed and criminally charged for not doing their fiduciary duties.
Certainly. Wayne, Cynthia pointing out some rather critical stuff there. Why are we sitting here close to a year later and nothing has been done? Except for the case. Of course, the case is one matter, and the judicial process is there. The case will take that process however long it takes. But there is also the question of a forensic report and an SIU report that has clearly demonstrated graft, skinny jeans, boerewors and whatnot, and people are not supposed to have gotten those contracts. Why is it that close to a year later, nothing has been done?
Well, that's a good question, and that's the answers that we are seeking. Clearly, there is political influence here. As has been reported by the journalists who've been uncovering this, there are political links to people in high places within the ruling party, and I guess, as it is always the case when whistleblowers are rounded up or singled out, that and where people are implicated, those people implicated are probably saying to their superiors, if I go down, you go down, because there are other people who have been drinking from this tap of illicit gains that have been made through this process. So you can imagine 850 million rand has not gone into one person's pocket. There's a whole network here, and it really makes us angry when we see this. I mean, in the normal scheme of things, in the corporate world, if something like this is uncovered, the disciplinary hearing, the evidence is gathered within a month, maximum two. The people are dismissed, they are charged. Every single action taken against them is taken against them. In a country where the criminal justice system works fast, I mean, it's not difficult to get on top of it. All the evidence that Cynthia has been speaking about, as the SIU has in the reports, this is there. It's very clear. So I go straight to the top then, the MEC for Health in Gauteng. We know there have been changes there, but where are those people? Why aren't they being investigated? Right up to the Premier. There are far too many people involved here. It's a big network here. We know that there's a lot of money that is channeled through modus operandis of this nature. And a lot of people in high places are going to be implicated in this matter. And that's why we believe it's taking so long. So we can only speculate. But it is all got to do with graft and corruption within the ruling party who, through this cadre deployment process, who are milking the system wherever they can.
Yeah. When you also said at some point that we are also losing some people who, earlier on raised up their hands, but now are pulling out as far as whistleblowing is concerned because they are afraid of going down the same road as Babita. How is that affecting the work that needs to be carried out here?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we often get hot leads. We have initial contacts with whistleblowers on very clear corrupt cases, and they say, we don't want to end up like Babita, like Cynthia and others who get ostracized, who lose their jobs, who get sidelined, who have the wrath of the implicated people in high places in positions of authority coming down on them. And very often it is a case of, look, I just can't say anything. I just value my life. I value my family and my livelihood, and it's just not worth blowing the whistle. And this has been an issue for a long time. The president has indicated we want to take whistleblowing and corruption seriously. Well, I can tell you right now, he is not. Right from the top, people in positions of power in this country are not taking the protection and the support that is required for whistleblowers seriously. They're not taking the fight against corruption seriously. If they were, they would make sure that every whistleblower got the protection, the support, the legal support that they need to take on the labor cases that they are subjected to in this litigation, this lawfare strategy. Yeah. It's just sickening to see what happens to whistleblowers, and I don't blame them, but we need them. They are the heroes in the fight against corruption, but government just pays lip service to it.
Cynthia, you mentioned the 2 that have been suspended. There are other officials in some of the reports that I'm seeing here on Business Day saying that the officials who are found in these reports, some of them are actually still at work, including some of the procurement officers. So I want us to talk about the tool of suspension, in one instance being used to punish whistleblowers, but in another instance, it seems it is also being used to protect perpetrators, in a sense, say, well, they are under suspension, and then nothing is being done.
Exactly. And this is the twofold playbook we're seeing, is that the perpetrators who have been complicit are the ones that A, are protected, and B, if they have been involved and complicit, they are suspended, but with full pay, and nothing much more happens to them. And should they be dismissed, then they can go and get another job. They do not suffer consequences where there has been criminal charges against them, so their career can continue. Whereas the whistleblower is victimized, vilified, loses their job, their career is ruined, they're unable to find any jobs. Right now at Whistleblower House, we are seeing so many cases of people losing their homes because they're unable to pay it, and the banks do not want to listen in any way to understand their plight, that they have no income, they're unable to service their debt, they're unable to service that home loan, and despite us appealing to the banks of what we're doing and how we'd like their assistance, they're not willing to help. So there is no one protecting whistleblowers, not the banks. The whistleblowers lose their homes, they lose everything, their livelihood from a financial perspective. They're starving, some of them. Some of them can't send their kids to school. Then they cannot find jobs. So that's the other issue we need to start looking at. How do we re-employ them into the system? That is the protection that the Department of Justice and government should be looking at. And how do we then find a way that they can make back what they've lost? Because how do you ever recoup that? You've lost from a health perspective, physical health, mental health, the trauma, the knock-on effect of your children, your family. How do you regain that, and how do we help? So I believe that the entire society, government, business should all get together and find solutions. We've got some recommendations, many, because we've been working with so many whistleblowers, but it now needs to be enforced and enacted upon. The Department of Justice has recently put out a discussion document for us to review, but having now read it, and I'm near my completion of putting all my comments, my personal view is that this is just a discussion document. It is not a white paper. It is not a green paper. It is not even a draft legislation. So how long is it going to take Department of Justice to put forward draft legislation, which we then should be reviewing, so we know they mean business, that they're serious about changing the plights of whistleblowers? We're not seeing that. So I agree totally with Wayne that there is no protection yet for whistleblowers. There isn't, and that's why people fear to tell the truth earlier, because they cannot afford to lose their jobs. They've seen there's too many cases ahead of them where they've seen what has happened to whistleblowers.
Do we have a turnaround time problem in this country? I ask you, we started off by saying, of course, there's a turnaround time issue when it comes to the court case. There is seemingly a turnaround issue, for example, when it comes to the disciplinary action that will be taken against the suspended CFO and COO. And in fact, at some point, I think Jack Bloom asked the MEC, Nomanturalo Hoku, why the suspended officials have not been taken through a disciplinary. Now she's saying, no, it's only going to happen in August. And at this particular point, they have not even laid official charges on the CFO, is the answer that we got. And then you have the officials that are still at work, and they answer, they're saying, why are these folks still at work? She says, well, we asked the SIU to help place their version on record against the allegations. To date, the department is still awaiting the report from the SIU and the Hawks. Are we having a turnaround time issue? And is this by design, or is it a system issue that we can change?
We have a leadership issue. This is a disgusting situation that arises from leadership. This is political interference issue. You know, these are not difficult matters. This is straightforward investigations. It doesn't even take a forensic investigator in a leadership position, in business when this happens, in any normal society when this happens. The facts are there, the evidence is there. Lay your case, tell us why you shouldn't be dismissed or suspended. Have the hearings, get all the evidence. It's there, right there in front of them. It takes the journalists to go and give them the evidence. I mean, it's so procrastination and delays in these matters, and it's across the board. It's across, you know, from new driver's license cards to 12 years of testing R2 to the ETOL decision made last year to scrap it, still limping along today, 8 months late, 9 months later. This is leadership. You know, you implement your policies and procedures. They're very clear. You make decisions and you remove the people, you lay the charges and you move on. It's not difficult. I mean, why is the department relying on an SIU report? They all just, you know, deflect everything. Well, we're waiting for them. No, you have an organization that you run. The Department of Health is a department. It has powers. The leaders have powers. Use those powers, make decisions, investigate, discipline, fire, lay charges. Yeah. It's easy. It's a leadership issue and it's a political interference issue. That's it. It's simple as that. You fix those two and the political will, and we move on and we get this country moving forward.
Interesting that you raised that, Cynthia, because I'm looking at some of these answers. I mean, it really is ridiculous. The MEC says the CEO was charged with authorization of purchase order requests. There are no specific charges for the CFO. However, she was doing approvals as the department, and we feel that she has a case to answer. How strong is that case? And how strong is that case? Is this a clear example of a CFO that more than likely is going to go scot-free here, because they don't seem to have a close enough, tight case here, Cynthia?
Thanks for the question. And no, her case is actually clear-cut. And I think they're just playing around. So let's just go back what her responsibilities are. She is the CFO, Chief Financial Officer. She has strong fiduciary duties. Firstly, to the organization, which is the Department of Health. She's probably a member of SICA, which is the Auditing Institute, and a CA. She, being an executive director, she's probably also a member of the Institute of Directors. And because she's involved in audit, she should be a member of participating in the IRBA. So she failed to safeguard the assets of Gauteng Health Department. She instead told Babita to keep quiet about it. She was asked by Babita to do a full forensic investigation. Did she do it? No. She rather asked for a compliance audit. So already she has contravened her own duties, her own fiduciary duties. Secondly is her responsibilities as a CFO is when she picks up, or any of her staff picks up and notifies her the way Babita did, she's supposed to investigate. She had a full detailed report from Babita Deokaran, naming the amounts, naming the organizations. She only had to act on it. She did not. She chose, yes, with the chief executive officer to rather do something else, keep quiet about it, and in no time Babita was killed. So they must have planned something with, this is my assumption, right? Because why then it was Babita killed and nothing happened to them? She, together with the CFO, should be disciplined. They should be charged, and they should be made delinquent directors and in dereliction and charged with dereliction of their fiduciary duties. Because every CEO and every CFO have the policies and procedures within that organization, which gives them full autonomy, full authority to investigate and to act on it, because there are disciplinary procedures. They did not do that. They kept quiet. A year passed before they were suspended. Then they were suspended in August of last year, a year after Babita was killed, and only because this came out in the media. Now they're suspended for a full year and still nothing, and they're saying they don't have enough evidence. That is not okay.
They are suspended for a full year, and on top of that, Wayne, they are currently having people there filling those positions who are acting. So those essentially are people with no authority, which means they are not really fixing the deep rot that is hindering that particular hospital to function properly.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want people in acting positions. You want people to take their jobs seriously. If they're there for the longevity and the roles that they fulfill, they want to feel safe and secure in their positions. And to do that, as Cynthia pointed out, you want to start exercising your fiduciary duties. They themselves could start investigating this. There all the evidence is, and they could also be making recommendations to the authorities that, hey guys, we need to move on this. I'm filling in on this position, but it's my fiduciary duty to look at what's happened as well in the past and look at the trends. This is not rocket science stuff. This is very quick and easy to have these cases. So we are paying two people's salaries now, acting person as well as the suspended people, for a year. It's just, it's sickening, quite frankly. It makes me angry because, you and I are paying for this. It's our taxpayers' money. And if you see justice being taken, if you see the people being held accountable, then you get a little bit of a sense of, okay, things are starting to work. But they're not. And this is a clear-cut case. It's not a difficult one. It's so infuriating to have to just sit here and watch the drivel and the nonsense that comes out of the mouths of people in authority that try and make excuses for not doing their job. And here, the MEC, the Minister of Health, should have hauled the MEC into the office, both the past and the current. What are you doing? This is an embarrassment. This is disgusting. And poor old Babita's family, they just get no closure. I mean, if I was the head of health, I would have been in touch with them. I'd be wanting to make sure that they're okay, that are they financially sound. I mean, how are they eating? What's going on here?
Cynthia, how high is the connection? I mean, there were allegations at some point of someone who could have been closely related to President Cyril Ramaphosa. And is that justification for I mean, I think Wayne has mentioned political interference at least 3 times in this interview. Is that suspicion justified that there could be political interference and there could be a big wig quite high up, maybe even at that level of being related to the president?
If you read the investigation reports done by Jeff Wex of News 24, and it's all on their website, one can see that there was quite a lot of people involved and a network. And in that network, it pointed to people in very senior positions in the cabinet, in government. So just the mere fact that everything is delayed, firstly, just postponing this case of the 6 suspects on a regular basis. And there's always an excuse. The attorney is ill, or the attorney didn't have time to read, or something needs to happen with the affidavit of the suspect. So there's always an excuse at that level. Then, at the level of what's happening internally in the Department of Gauteng, the MEC's office, the senior people who manage the Gauteng office, what's happened to them? We've just seen delays. So one can only surmise now that there must be some bigger authority that they're trying to push this away, hoping that South Africans are going to sleep and forget about this. But this was an assassination, a planned assassination, whereby Babita was shot outside her home with 12 bullets. 12. It was as if they wanted to make sure that she was dead and that she can never, ever speak again. And that is the plight of whistleblowers. It's uncanny that we say they whistleblow, because the main thing is everyone wants to gag them, wants to make them keep quiet, wants to stop them from speaking. So yes, the only conclusion I can draw here is that there must be some senior people involved. Because why? Department of Health was a key department, especially during COVID. And they were on the news regularly, giving us feedback on statistics, on how to wear our masks, when to wear our masks, what we need to do, what vaccinations we needed to take, the boosters, etc. And now they're quiet. Why are they quiet?
Yeah.
Definitely, they need to start speaking out on this.
The question, of course, is why are the others not being handed over to the NPA? And the answer from the MEC is that, well, an established criminal task team will inform any criminal referrals. If it wasn't so serious, it really would be funny. So we're going to create a task team that is going to determine where the criminal charges are going to be. I don't know what you make of that, and again, the role of the NPA, particularly in the 6 that have been arrested.
You know, let's put it another way, and this is why we speculate the way we do. If those were just 2 individuals working on their own, and the authorities higher up came across this type of corruption, and they weren't having their lunch, their slice of the cake, there's just these 2 people, the CFO and the CEO, were making 850 million. I can tell you now, the wrath would have been laid upon them. The people above them would have come down and said, we've caught some corruption here. And they would make a classic example of how they are good at fighting corruption. They've uncovered this. None of that has happened. So you can only speculate that there's interference, authoritarian interference from higher up that's stopping this case from following due process. Very simple due process disciplinary procedures. They're very straightforward. So, you know, when it stinks and looks like a rat, it's a rat. It's so obvious that they're just delaying everything. And as Cynthia says, hoping that, well, the headlines today will be gone tomorrow. And it took a headline a year after Babita's death and nothing had happened to say, oh, gee, we better start doing things. Okay, let's now suspend. Let me tell you, it's written all over everything in this case, particularly with the assassination, the plot. As it's been laid out by the journalists and as we've been seeing, it's so clear that there are people higher up the chain that are involved in this. So, you know, if the president wasn't in, somebody is not involved, and does it go that high? But he should be saying, come on, guys, please, this is a mockery. You're making a mockery of the system now. If we cannot apprehend and deal with these perpetrators inside the system, then we are not worth our salt as leadership in this country. Now, why isn't it coming from him? It's not as if the president doesn't know what's happened, yeah? This has been headline news for a long time. Let's start there and ask the president, what do you think about the Babita case? What do you think has happened here? If you're not implicated, why haven't you taken someone by the ear, hauled them into office and said, if this isn't sorted out in the next 3 months, those people aren't fired and charged in that, then I'm holding you, Minister, accountable. It's your fault then. Because everybody is just lazy in the chain. Nobody's doing their work.
Let's leave it there for tonight. I appreciate you both for coming on. That is the Whistleblower House Executive Director, Cynthia Stimpel, and Outa CEO Wayne Duvenage. All right.